Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Talk Busy with Lizzy podcast. I'm your host, Lizzy, and this week we have on a wonderful woman named Kristina. She is a children's author, and she has the cutest main character named Bella, who is also an elephant. And through all of the books, Bella learns how to understand her emotions, how to talk about them, how to deal with them. And there's so much more to these stories than you may think. Obviously, all stories have some sort of theme, some sort of learning curve. But the thing that's so beautiful about her stories is how she brings the parent and child together to understand these emotions and to put them into practice of how to deal with them. So I think that that's just so cool. And I think sometimes we think that children's books are just, they have a little bit of a thing, but it's nothing big, but truly her stories are just so beautiful. So I'm so excited to talk to her today about her story, how that led to her creating this character and where that's going now. So, without further ado, let's let Kristina share her story. I'm so excited that you reached out and that I get to have you on. So, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm good. I'm super excited to get to talk to you about your story and about your books. That's so cool.
It's one of those days where I'm really like getting a lot of stuff done because when I have stuff like this booked, I'm like, okay, I want these things done before I hop on. And I was like, wow, I'm actually doing it. This is great. I prefer when I'm productive. Like I feel better about myself. So it's been a good week, but with Halloween, it's been a little crazy.
I
So yeah, it's been a whirl of a week.
Are you good if
Yeah.
we just jump right into questions?
Yes, totally.
Okay, cool. So my first question is, what is your story?
Oh, it's such a good question. So my story, gosh, I don't know where to begin. So I'll try to tell like the leading up to how I got to where I am. So I grew up in a small farm town and I'm the oldest of three. And even though I look like my mom, especially I look like just like my mother, I was always the scapegoat and the odd duck in every circle, whether it was family or friends. Like I never belonged in this small town. And when I was about 10 and a half, went to New York for the first time. And I took one look at New York and fell in love and said, I'm going to live here. And my parents' reaction was like, you're 10. And I was like, no, I'm going to do it. And at 18, I left and never left back. And I've been living in New York ever since. The other piece of me that was always kind of odd and also unseen as a child is I was always an artist. I was always a creative. And when I was 7 years old, a local art teacher took me under her wing and started training me. And for whatever reason, people had no idea I drew, even though I was taken over 2 years prior to when she would normally take in a child to start training them. Normally, most art venues like that normally don't take children until they're around 9, maybe even 10, because there is a certain discipline about sitting still. It's not like sports and dance and other forms of art where or athleticism where there's movement like art, you need to sit still. And you also go right into the hard concepts. Whereas as a dancer, there is room for play there's definitely that room for play at a young age. And with art, it's almost like the discipline and the skills have to come before the actual art. And so that was another piece of me. And because I was so used to being an odd duck, I hid my art even as an adult. And so I needed to make a living. And so I found myself in these corporate jobs and these jobs I didn't necessarily belong in, but like I knew how to like put on a shield and fit in and whatnot. And I went through something in my early 30s, what led me to start going to therapy. And, because that's when I realized like something's not right here with the way things have been going all these years. Like I want to reprogram, like I want to hear like what I want to figure this out. And I realized that the environment I was brought up in, there was never acknowledgement of feelings. There was never a communication of feelings. And it was through therapy that I realized really what feelings are. And I was actually introduced to the feelings list. And I had no idea how to say, I am feeling blank. That was something that I never realized. And I realized that what was going on all these years is I was brought up in an environment with people that didn't know how to talk about feelings and didn't know how to communicate. And so my therapy and even my current healing, that's something I'm striving for. So fast forward to 2018, I had a bad dance injury, and this injury forced me to be out of the office, and I cried because I was missing my coaching. That's what I cried about first. Not how am I going to pay my rent? Not how am I going to get home from this, like at this table. I was just upset about missing my coaching. So it was kind of like that zinger of like, I'm a creative. I can't keep living this double life. And a friend came over about a week or two after my surgery when I couldn't like put any weight on my leg and whatnot. I had an Achilles tendon injury. And he said, you can't keep doing this. And I was like, well, what do I do? And so I started networking. As soon as I could really kind of put some weight on my leg, I don't think I can put weight on it yet. I started reaching out to people, every venue you could think of, Facebook, LinkedIn, email, just like texting, like, hey, are you open to having a conversation with me? Can we talk? And I got a ton of no's. And right before I went back in the office, two things happened. One, I was back in the studio already in the boot and all, and back in coaching. And the other thing happened is I met my career coach, Matilda. And she said to me, 80% of jobs are not posted. And I was like, oh, I knew it. I knew there was something going on here. And so I started working with my career coach, Matilda. And the next year I realized like, cause I've always been a networker, but there were things in my strategy that Matilda tweaked. And with those tweaks, I was actually getting coffee meetings and talking to people and all of these different things. Come 2019, I did get laid off from my job. And I realized, you know what, I'm Catholic. I really believe in God and higher power. And I realized, you know what, you already know you're going to pivot. God's just like pushing you towards what you need to do. And so I embraced that. And I just kicked up the networking. And I also started dabbling with the idea of being an entrepreneur. And I had these two different ideas going. And I was like, let me just play with this on the side. So I still thought I was going to go into another job and then develop one of these two things on the side and eventually like create it into a business. And I was walking out Pilates and I met this woman, and she was a managing director of HR at one of those fabulous Park Avenue firms, right? Like right by where Baby Boom's filmed. If you know what I'm talking about, Diane Keaton movie, like right there, Grand Central's right there, gorgeous area of Manhattan, like creme de la creme. Get the interview, go in the interview, feel fabulous, walk out, and I realized I can't do this again. If I take this job, I'm going to repeat my patterns all over again. And that's actually what I realized from doing therapy, is that you have to kind of recognize your patterns and then be like, whoa, not going to do this again. So I went to Matilda and we were in a WeWork conference room. And first the conversation started off, well, how do I say no without burning a bridge? Because you never want to burn a bridge because you want to keep your doors open. But then we started talking more and I was rambling. And I'll never forget it. I looked up at her and I said, I think I'm supposed to be an entrepreneur. And she said, I agree. And I was like, okay, what do I do now? And I'm a huge Robert Redford fan. So if anyone here has seen The Candidate, I felt like he does in that very last scene in the hotel room. It was his campaign manager is like, what next? Like, that's literally how I felt. I was like, what do I do? Because there is no manual. There's no health plan. There's no like, this is your salary and this is your bonus. Like, you really are like, whoa. But at the same time, it's like, whoa, I can like, as an artist, as a dancer, it's like having an empty dance studio. It's like having an empty canvas. It's like, I can do whatever I want. And there's something really delicious about that, but also something very scary about that. And so I kept networking. And the two ideas I had that I mentioned just a few minutes ago that I had was, one is I was pitching this idea that I would develop social media ideas for people, like themes and pillars and whatnot for their social media. The other idea, and ironically, when my buddy Alex said, you can't keep doing this, that kind of gave me that nudge into my pivot. When he said that, I had tons and tons of yarn on my ottoman because I am a crocheter and now I'm a knitter as well. I'm both. I'm a crocheter and knitter. So all those crochet characters that I've been making for the year prior and the time I was in the boot and couldn't move, I actually was creating a portfolio without even realizing it. And so I pitched this idea. My other idea is pitching is I tell stories through my characters. And that's what people kept gravitating towards. And so I was like, okay, I think I need to focus on this. And then I had an unfortunately family incident. I got a phone call that my mom was very ill. And something inside of me, I swear it was my grandma. That's why I'm a Lucia. I'm named after her. I went online that night and filed for my LLC under under the business name of the characters. And a week and a half later, my mom passed. And that day she passed, I went home and I opened my mailbox and I got a piece of mail addressed to my LLC. And it was a letter saying my LLC had been approved. And I knew it was my mom and grandma telling me, you need to do this. You need to do this. Just trust us. This is going to lead you. And so I did. I kept pitching. And of course, I get even more no's and even more pushback. But then the pandemic hit too, because this is 2019 and then March 2020 hits, right? And right before the pandemic, I'd written my first blog because the characters gave me an opportunity to blog. I've been saying for years, I want to blog, I want to blog. And so when the pandemic got like serious and we really were in that lockdown, I thought, I'm going to write a blog a day. 80% of those blogs did not get posted, but it got me writing and it got my juices flowing. And by the end of 2020, I realized I need to write a children's book series. And that even fine-tuned the characters I create and whatnot. And here I am in front of you with book 11 about to come out in the series. And also book 12 is about to go into production. And it's just kind of one of those things where it's like you don't always know where the road's going to end. And so I still feel like I don't even know where the road's going to end. Like there are still things I'm working on developing. There are things that I'm trying to get into. There are things that I'm developing now that I didn't think about back in 2020 when I discovered I was a writer, because I've always been an artist. I've always been drawing. So the writing was that piece of the puzzle. It sealed it. And the deeper I get in this journey, the more ideas, and even as I do develop certain projects in my business, like even more ideas come from that. I'm like, oh, wait, I want to work at this age level. I want to work with this group of people, and how can I get in front of them? And so the possibilities are endless.
Yeah. That's so cool. I'm so excited. Obviously, like I haven't read any of your books yet, but I really want to get some. I think that it's such a cool idea. And one of my questions is, what would you say to your younger self who's feeling like the scapegoat, feeling like the odd duck? What is the number one thing you would say to her?
Give her a huge hug. And I would tell her, you're special. And they're reacting like this to you because they're forcing their own insecurities on you. And you have really something special to give the world. And I need you to hang in there because other people are in the same boat and they need you. They need you. Like you have a special message, you have a special knack. And unfortunately, when we have special messages and special knacks, if people don't have that same knack, they tend to downplay it because they're jealous of like, why don't I have this? And that's what I would tell that little girl. And I would say, you have every right to be frustrated. You have every right to be upset because you are being treated unfairly. You are being treated unjustly. But I promise you that this is going to empower you in the long run. And you are going to find a place in your life where you do have a choice, where you don't have to be around these people, where you have the choice not to be in the room with people that have you labeled and categorized as a scapegoat. And it's okay because you're going to find other people that will love you and accept you for who you are.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
What has been the most beneficial thing for you in your healing process?
I think the most beneficial thing is, and I'm not saying I'm perfect at it because there are days that are harder than others. I think the most beneficial thing is having the courage to approach businesses and this is more like from an entrepreneurial point of view, you get so many no's. And especially when you create for children, people's inner child come out at you very quickly and it can be very aggressive. It can come off the wrong way. And I think my healing journey has given me space to feel the frustrations and feel the feelings, but also be able to brush it off and keep going. I've had people I always get excited when you or any other podcast host gives me the time, the space to share my story, because I have gotten messages just once that say, I have no interest in having you on my show. And it hurts. I'm not going to lie. It hurts. I've had schools tell me, oh no, we're good for right now. I've had schools tell me you're not the right fit. I've also had restaurants tell me the same thing. I've also had people say, I want to work with you, but then another member of the team gets involved and they get jealous of what I do, or they're uncomfortable with what I do, and all of a sudden the story is rewritten. And it's because the thing with rejection too is that when we are rejected, I believe that it's our higher power, in my case God. I think it's forcing us to where we really need to be. It's like God, I'm gonna draw a blank on the author's name. His first name is Pablo the Alchemist, and I'm sure people know what I'm talking about. I read it a
Mm-hmm.
long time ago, and I should really reread it. I'm a writer. It's not a shock that I'm a reader. I'm a very avid reader. But when I first read that book, I remember processing it. But now, where I am right now, like I do in my mind, even though I haven't read it in a minute, I go back to, I'm like, okay, you're ready to leave the story where you're polishing the statues. You know what I mean? You're ready to move on. And, sometimes we don't. And I know
Mm-hmm.
me, like I'm not, sometimes I do get comfortable and I don't like leaving people behind, even though I do have very curious nature. I can be very audacious when I want to be. And that kind of shocks people because I kind of have a double side to me. And people are like, well, wait, how can you be like this and be like this? Da, da, da. And so I think my healing journey helps give me that strength to be like, okay, this person said no. Next. All right, next. Next opportunity.
Right. I know. I think it truly is like rejection can be God's just push to go the right direction. So,
Yes. Agreed. Agreed. Completely agreed. Yes.
yeah. So obviously with writing children's books, most of the time children are reading these with their parents, and the parents are also kind of getting that same understanding and learning those same things, especially in your own books. So what is one thing that you would want all parents to know?
Oh, such a good question. Thank you for asking it. So I actually write my books in a way that they're relatable to both the child and the parent. And one of the ways that I do this is that when Bella's struggling with something, whatever adult figure it is, whether it's mom or dad, or it's an aunt or her grandma, the adult says, I get scared as an adult. I get frustrated as an adult. I I struggle with this too. I really wanted to to make sure I put it out there that just because we know how to tie our shoes doesn't mean we don't experience the same frustration with something else. One of my biggest analogies that I give, like as an entrepreneur, it's like learning to ride a bike every day. It's like you fall off, you scrape your knee, you bandage, you get back on, you keep going. It's kind of like the same thing. And as an aunt, like I observe certain
Mm-hmm.
things when I'm around my nephew and the other little ones. And I think, you know what? If he can fall but get up and keep walking, why can't I? If he can like keep going until he figured out how to put on that rainbow, why can't I? And that's why, but honestly, I really felt out of fairness to the readers, that's why I made sure that there is an adult character saying that. The other piece I do in my books too is I have a section in all of my books called Activity Beyond the Books. And this is a gentle guide. And I say gentle because every family is different. And only you know what's going on inside. Only you know your child best. And I hate being told what to do. I really, really hate it. And the last thing I want to do is do that to somebody else. So activities beyond the book is where I point out things I mention it in the book or the character goes through. And I give gentle suggestions of how you can apply that. The other reason I do that too. So the thing is when you're writing, and I actually told my assistant this, is when I first interviewed her, it's a balance of you need to give the audience a piece of yourself, but you need to give them what they're looking for as well. And it needs to be a happy harmony. And the way I do that with me giving a piece of myself is I do focus on things that I can fully write about, meaning like I'm a dancer. So Bella will be the next book that's going to be going into production is Bella's ballet class. So like, that's why ballet, because I'm a dancer. I compete in international Latin. I practice ballet. Like I can speak about the discipline and the practice of it. I'm a baker. That's why a lot of my books have baking in it. However, for the mom and dads out there, they're like, I don't dance. I don't bake. That's also a reason for activities beyond the book too, is to say, to give relatable parallel situations that you can adapt. Because that would be like me reading a book about sports. I can barely kick a soccer ball to save my life. Like, I'm really bad. Like, I really have no idea what to do. I'm like, yay, goal. Okay. Like, it's like, I don't know what I'm talking about. And so that's like, that would be like me, is I would need the activities behind the book to be able to relate to my kiddo. And so that's really what I have there for parents, because I do see these books as much for them as for their child, because this is an intimate moment for you to bond with your little one. I mean, whether it's after a nap, before a nap, at bedtime, first thing in the morning. Like, as an aunt, like, I have definitely read Little Blue Truck at 6 a.m. Like, I've definitely been like brushing my teeth to hear my nephew's little steps and have a little, be in his nursery 5 minutes later reading Little Blue Truck, because that's what I read at 6 a.m. when I'm with him. It's a bonding moment. It's a moment. And as an author, I want to create the best experience for you, because if you're welcoming into your home, if you're welcoming into these intimate moments with you and your little one, like, I want to provide you the best quality. And also, if you're tired, I want you to be like, okay, at least I'm reading a book I love. If you're tired at the end of the day and you just want to get through bedtime, like, I want you to be enjoying it just as much as your kid is. So that's really important, I feel, too.
I love that. And I think it's so cool that you talk about it as like an experience, and having you like, it truly is an invitation to the home, because like the author has like, those are your words, and you like a part of you in your books. And so I really like how you explain that.
Oh, thank you.
Um, can you tell us uh yeah, can you tell us a little bit more about Bella and some of the things that she learns?
So Bella is actually a child version of me. My nickname is actually Bella. I am from an Italian family,
Oh.
and ironically, one of my dance coaches actually coined me with the nickname. And then it's actually from my male friends too. It's between that and my male friends that people start calling me Bella, and I was like, I just need to own this. I need to own my nickname, because I go to Italy at least once a year, and people call me Bella there too. And they're like, oh, it makes sense. Bella Lucia, of course. So I really, I embrace that in naming the character. And as far as like who she is and what she learns, so that's also where like pieces of me come out. Like, I'm very feminine. I'm always in dresses. Like, I'm very girly, not girly,
Mhm.
but very feminine. And so I really wanted to exude that in Bella. My mom always did my hair every morning. That's why Bella always has a bow in her hair. As far as what she learns, that's where, like I said before, where I'm giving my audience what they want. I purposely chose skills that we all go through. So for example, book one is Bella's big girl bed. We all go from a crib to a big child bed. We all learn to dress ourselves. We all learn to read. Most of us learn to ride a bike, if not as children, as adults. And then from there, and yes, some books are a little more tailored to me. Like, I'm a big Paris girl. I always go to Paris every year. So Bella goes to Paris. Yes, there's the Italy book, because I got an Italian family. I love Italy. I also make my homemade pasta, so Bella makes pasta. But even in those books, there's relatable moments. Like, for example, in Paris, Bella really misses her friends. She gets homesick. And that's something I think all of us have experienced at one point or another. In the Italy book, there's a difference in generations where the grandmother won't let her help make the pasta, even though at this point in the series, Bella's like actively cooking with mom and her other relatives and whatnot. It's like, why can't I help? And I think we've all gone through that, like, where we have that one person that thinks we're like not capable, and it's frustrating. And that's where Bella learning, and that's for showcasing the different feelings. Like, I did take care to show fear, frustration, confusion, different ways, and then different ways to get through it. But there's always that adult factor in the equation of relating to her as an adult and explaining and giving her a solution. And the other piece of it too that Bella does as well is there's always a friend that she helps. She has 5 friends in the book. She has a little posse. I rotate it so every friend appears. I'm thinking one second. Every friend appears 3 times, because there's going to be 15 books in all. So I rotated it so she helps each character 3 times within the book, so it's all even. And what she does is she actually she actually embodies a serenity prayer where she focuses on being the best version of herself. So she's going through a struggle. She's focusing on getting through it. And so when a friend comes to her and says, well, I'm struggling with this, she is sharing with them. She's relating to them. And then they're able to see her example and embody it in their own way. And that was also very important to me too, because when I discovered serenity prayer, especially as a Catholic, I felt like this is really empowering. It's so easy to wag a finger at somebody and tell them what to do. Whereas serenity prayer, because the reality is when we change ourselves, when we change our energy, it does create a ripple effect around us. And I've actually talked about this before. It can go one or two ways. It does open the doors for other possibilities, but it also does close the doors as well. And I recognize, like, for people that are listening, I've gone through it myself. It does hurt when doors close, whether it's friendships breaking up or relationships, but going through it, even though, yes, I acknowledge it's hard. And like, I'm actually going through one right now. But getting over the hill, whenever I do get over it, there's always something there. I'm always, you know what I mean? But that transition period, it is rocky, and it does take courage to kind of stick with it and know you're going to like get through the storm and it's going to be sunshine again. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. And we just don't know how long, but it's having that faith of knowing you're being carried. You got people watching. You have your higher powers watching you. You got this.
That's awesome. I think so important. Like you said, it is something that everyone goes through, is some sort of burn bridge, some sort of loss of a friend or family member,
Yeah.
that broken relationship. And so I think it is important to remember that you do get through it. Yes, that transition
Yes.
period is terrible, no fun, but there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. No, I was going to say, because,
And
sorry,
then
go ahead.
I no,
Oh,
you
no,
go
no.
ahead.
I was just going to say really quickly, because that's why, like, when Bella gets dressed, for example, she learns how to dress herself after she gets frustrated, not being able to do things. And Aunt Sue says, well, I still need to ask for help with like putting on my necklace. You know what I mean? Even as an adult, we still need help with things. And
Mm-hmm.
her parents give her, Aunt Sue and her parents give her a doll that has a dress that zippers and snaps. And that's how she learns that. And then her dad gives her shoes for the doll. And so, she's but each time she has to try again. And her parents say, it's okay. You have to, and that's the thing. So in light of what you said, what we were just saying, I mean, it's okay. Like, it's okay to try again. It's okay to give yourself that space to, like, just because you got it right once doesn't mean you have to get it right every single time. Like, it's okay. And there are times where we need to adapt it. There's like, okay, like when I pitch, sometimes a pitch works really great for one place, but then I have to go to the other place and I have to really like listen again. I'm like, oh wait, I have to adjust it for this because this is what they're looking for. And so being that awareness, it's okay to be adaptable. It's okay to adjust things. So yeah, I feel like it's so important to know, to share. Excuse me.
Yeah. And I think it's really cool too, like you were mentioning earlier, how all of these like lessons that Bella's learning are applicable to everyone in over many different things. Like
Yeah.
you're saying, it's applicable to when you're pitching for an interview or pitching to do whatever. It's even that lesson is helpful to you in this moment as an
Yeah.
adult. So I
Yeah.
think that's so cool.
Oh, thank you.
What is one thing, because I'm also an author, and I know that I've done some healing and have written certain things into my own books, but also while writing, you learn so much too. So, what is the biggest thing you've learned through writing these books?
uh, you know, I apologize. I'm getting teary because her anniversary is coming up. The biggest thing I've learned is my mom, my mom's had a chance to be the parent she wanted to be for me in this life. My mom unfortunately suffered from some things that prevented her from being the mother I needed her to be. That's why I was a scapegoat. That's why so many things happened. That's why lack of communication, non-acknowledgement of feelings. And the Bella's mom is based on the mom I know my mom wanted to be. And getting to show the world that, getting to share that piece of her, because I know beneath those anxieties and the narcissism was a really beautiful soul. And the biggest part about her being gone is respecting that she made the choice not to work through those things, and whatever fear overruled, like, I need to respect that as her daughter, even though it wasn't the right choice for me, it was the right choice for her. I think writing the Bella Lucia series, it gives me an opportunity to showcase the beauty that a lot of people did. Fortunately, a lot of people did see the beauty in my mother. My mother had a lot of great qualities about her, but unfortunately, for those listening that do have a parent or a loved one that suffers from narcissism or anxieties, you know all too well that it does rob you of certain intimacies. It does kind of halt your relationship. There are things like, for example, Bella's Halloween costume. Bella's mom makes her a costume. My mom was a really, really amazing sewer. I mean, she really did some beautiful work. And she actually did have this painting I drew of a macaw parrot above her ironing board for years. And I would sit at her feet while I colored. And I actually drew that in the book. And so getting to show people like a piece of her happy place, of her safe space, really is magical. The other thing about writing, and this is actually really funny. So I'm a huge Dr. Seuss fan. And as an adult, I learned that, I've learned more because I also love Chuck Jones. And I realized how Ted Geisel and Chuck Jones, how they were in the war together and they drew cartoons. That's how they ended up working together in the long run. They had been friends for a long time. And hence why the cartoon of The Grinch Who Stole Christmas and all that other stuff. And when I read that his mom always wanted him to be a teacher, a doctor, always be a doctor. So when he became a children's author and illustrator, he chose Dr. Seuss because that's her maiden name. Second thing I learned is my mom always wanted me to be a teacher. And that was something we had a lot of fights about. And because I've been labeled as a scapegoat in both my immediate family and my extended family, which is why I spaced myself from certain circles. So I'm like, that's just not fair, guys. You gotta stop with the story. You need to we all need to grow up and realize I'm not a bad person. I don't deserve to be the blame for everything. And so again, Serenity Prayer, it's I just don't hang out with them. And so the rare times I do hang out with these certain circles, actually the family friend bully me. Why didn't you listen to your mother? I'm like, because I'm a grown woman and it's not my path. It's not my choice. And so when I wrote the book series, I realized oh my gosh, this is mom getting her way, because I do work with schools among other venues. And I realized and I actually write that at the end of my dedication, my acknowledgements in the back of my book, that I think mom and I worked out a healthy compromise. But the other funny piece of this is I'm not the only one that's been through this, though. I realized that because I'm a huge Dr. Seuss fan. And when I learned as an adult how Ted Geisel, his mom wanted him to be a doctor. So when he started writing his book series, he did Dr. Seuss as a tip to her because that was her maiden name. And I learned that. I can't remember when exactly I learned that, but I definitely had that knowledge when I started writing my series and really started building my team and whatnot. And I'll never forget it. I was at my sister's house for Easter, and my nephew was a little over a year at that point. And I remember turning to her and saying, I want to use mom's maiden name as my pen name. And she was the first person I told. And I'm very grateful for that. I think that was really important to my mom, that it was an intimate moment for for the women in our family. And so my legal name is Kristina Lucia Andrews, and Andrews always clunks, and people always look at me like, wait, what? And I'm like, I know, it doesn't make sense. So my adding Petsa using Petsa as my pen name has proven to be really beneficial for me in many ways. It fits my my first and my middle name so much nicer. And it's like, oh, it makes sense. You know what I mean? It's just like a click of the puzzle, but also it gives me an opportunity to include my mom in the series as well. Unfortunately, she passed in 2019. I realized I was an author in 2020. So she's been above since I started this journey, this part of the journey. And I know I know my grandma's definitely there. I know my grandma's there. She's always like right there with me. But it's nice to involve my mom as well. I always had that unconditional love for my grandmother, but like knowing that I can have mom involved in a way is nice too. It's been a nice piece of it.
That's awesome.
Thank
And
you.
one of my biggest things is we have, everyone has reasons, but they don't have excuses, all the time. And so I think you just honoring your mom in that of like, I understand your reasons. Yes, it doesn't excuse that I was the scapegoat, but I
Yep.
understand why because you couldn't, like, you didn't have that ability to. And
Yeah.
so just understanding that, but also being like, I don't deserve to be treated this way. And so, and like you said, you decided, you weren't going down the same path exactly how she wanted you to, because you are a grown woman and get to make your own decisions, but still having that honor and that respect and understanding of her reasons.
I love what you said. You said it so beautifully, because that's where I honestly believe, because like I've always been Catholic, and yes, I'm baptized and all that jazz, and yes, I go to mass and all of that. But I think when a lot of people talk about religions they grew up with, they're more forced into it. And yes, my mom was very Catholic. I'm Roman Catholic. My mom's Roman Catholic. But I never remember anyone forcing it on me. And I also I've never questioned that there's God. And I've always had a very deep sense of faith. And I think because I have a very strong sense of faith in a very natural, intuitive way, I also feel that's why I have a very strong imagination. So I'm like, well, why can't you do this? Like it actually, like I do have a very big mind. Like I had something happen over the summer where someone said something to me and I said, well, why not? Like, why can't we get together again? Like, what do you mean? Like, why can't we make this work? You know what I mean? And like,
Mm.
so I've always had that. And then when I loop it in my healing journey, when I looped in serenity prayer, it's actually giving more clarity to my sense of faith. And I really believe faith. And I'm going to quote another movie because like I love movies as much as I love books. If anyone's ever seen Keeping the Faith, it's a great movie with, I'm going to forget the actress's name, Jenna something. I'm so apologize everyone. I can't remember her name, but Ben Stiller's in it. Ed Norton's in it. And Ed Norton plays the Catholic priest. And he says faith is a hunch. And it's like trusting that hunch and believing in it. And I think when we combine serenity prayer, because serenity prayer is not denominational, it's more kind of a light sense of Christianity, if that's appropriate to say. But I feel like when you look at both serenity prayer and for me, Catholicism, for me at least, there's that choice and responsibility. There's that choice to believe in and to have faith and believe, but there's also a responsibility with that choice. And I see people usually people go with forget the responsibility. It's like, okay, but you chose to go this route. You chose to make that move. We always have a choice. And it's a lot
Mm-hmm.
easier to live in the victim role. The way I was raised, like I don't mean to be vulgar, but the way I was raised and the way I was treated, even as an adult, the way I'm treated, it's a miracle I don't have a substance abuse problem. Like I really was abused and treated in a way that could have pushed me way, way down that path. And even though when I was going for therapy for my Achilles injury, my physical therapist said you have a personality to like for certain things like that. But I'm like, I know, but like even beyond that, but it's like you can. That's how people get into these ruts. And it's not just substances, it's overspending or it's abusive relationships. And for me, yeah, I have been in a lot of abusive relationships because of the way I was programmed. But I made the choice to stop. And I made the choice to reprogram myself. Like I made the choice. And even with healing, have I been in abusive situations? Absolutely. I was, even even in my community, I found myself in an abusive situation on more than one occasion. But the healing journey gave me the opportunity to say, you have a choice. You can step down from this role. You don't have to be involved in their group. Like, you can walk away. And that's very empowering. And I get why it's scary for people, because I don't know always where I'm walking. I don't know who I'm going to find next down the road. But I also know in my heart, it's better than staying and being everyone's punching bag. And I'm like, I deserve better than this. And so what you said was just so on point and so beautiful. So thank you for giving me the space to allow to reconfirm, because I was like, oh my God, she's saying so many amazing things. I just have to do my little bit here.
I love it. Yeah, of course. And I also, what was I going to say? You were talking about just like healing being your choice. And like, no one can force you to heal. No one can force you to go get the help that you need. You have to take that first step. And so, and like, props to you. And I think that that's just what, I mean, therapy and counseling can be so, so important. Reading books like the ones you write, even like, I can't even, I bet there are parents reading those and being like, oh, there's things I need to work on and heal from and deal with. Just from like a simple children's book. Like,
The little girl comes out.
I mean, not saying like it's just simple, but I'm just meaning like they're not reading this deep, like, long, I don't know, one of like super long book that has all these, like, details and all these scientific and therapy things written in it. It truly is from a children's book, realizing, hey, like, I'm dealing with that stuff too. And I haven't healed from the way my parent treated me, or the way this person treated me, or the way I grew up. And so I think that that's just really amazing.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, because that's the thing when you write children's, you are playing with the inner child in yourself. And you hit it spot on. Like, unless we deal with our own things, our own traumas, our own struggles, we are without even wanting to do it, going to pass it on to the next generation. And but then again, like, as someone that had stuff passed on to them, as someone that had stuff thrown at them, my thing too is that I realize is that I don't, and I'm saying this for everyone who needs, I know there's people out there that need to hear this. I don't blame my mom. Do I get mad or do I get frustrated? Yes, but I don't blame her. And it took me a long time to hear the phrase, she's doing the best at what she has. Because I know it's triggering, and I know it's frustrating to hear that. And I know it hurts to hear it, but she was. And I feel like, even though I'm getting misty, because her death anniversary is on November 6th, so like it's right around the corner. And, I realize that I'm saying that because I do believe there are people out there that someone's going to hear this, and I hope it helps you. I hope it brings you comfort. I hope it brings you a space of like, to breathe, give yourself a sigh of relief. Like, okay, I'm not imagining this, but also give yourself that freedom, because I think making the choice to heal, at the end of the day, we can only change ourselves. And it is a struggle. Like, because it's so much easier to be like, oh, I'll fix them. And it's like, it doesn't work like that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I talked to one of my good friends, Nevaeh. She's been on the podcast twice now. Wow. But in a totally separate conversation apart from the podcast, we had a discussion about this and about just traumas she's gone through. She's adopted, and she's had some, obviously, with foster care and adoption, no matter what, there's trauma. And so we were just talking about, she got married in June, and so we were talking about, just building a family, having kids and everything. And she's like, yeah, the one thing I want to make sure is that I've healed, that like before having kids, I've healed, so that I'm not passing on any trauma to them. And even she finally got in contact with her bio mom, which is so cool. And even her bio mom was saying, you've broken generational curses in our family. And so she's like, I just want to continue doing that. I want to like make sure that I've healed, so that my issues aren't being pushed onto them. So I think that that's just so important of realizing, we all have healing to do. And otherwise, we do push it on to other people.
Yeah.
And it's not their burden to carry, it's ours. So
Yes. Right. It's so true. Well, props to your friend for, wow, what an courageous young woman. That's really, wow.
she's awesome.
Her kids
Love
are
her.
going to be really blessed with it sounds like they're going to be blessed with like a really awesome mom, like a really amazing mom. Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
yes, they will
Yeah.
be. I'm so excited to see just where God takes her journey, because
Yeah.
she's one of my favorite people. So,
Oh,
yeah.
I love that.
I
Thank you
actually
for
got to be in her
sharing.
wedding, so it was really fun.
Oh,
Yeah.
exciting. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, it was really fun. So I have just a couple more questions. What is your biggest wish for your books?
Oh gosh. My my biggest wish is not only just to grow the company, to the heights that I want to see it grow. Because I do have a lot of big visions. Like I grew up wanting to be a Disney artist, and I do see myself evolving
Oh, wow.
into a Disney, another version of Disney, because his work
That'd be cool.
heavily influenced me, and I actually use some of his movies, especially when I'm talking about marketing, as an example, because the children's business is very complex. So like I do want my books going that route, but the overall vision and wish, it's to go there not just for like the practical reasons about being able to support myself without worry and all that, but also to be able to reach people. Like one of my friends asked me, do you want to be famous? Because he knows I want to be on late night, and he knows I want to do red carpets. I'm like, it's not so much being famous. I shouldn't say it that way. I don't want to be famous. I want to be respected and seen as a thought leader, and have access to people that can get my message out. And with my message out, I feel like that will only grow my audience of my books, and will give my books more endorsement. Another big influence in me becoming a children's author, and it actually happened a year before I discovered I was an author. This was 2019. I watched the Fred Rogers documentary, Will You Be My Neighbor? And it's ironic because I watched Fred Rogers when I was a kid, but I wasn't like religiously watching. I was more a Sesame Street kiddo, and I still love Sesame Street. It's still like my fave. But I watched what he did in the documentary, and I was like, this is brilliant. And that's how really that really solidified like me to have a mission about communication, to have a mission about feelings. And also as an adult, when I watch the clips they show in the documentary, I was looking at what he was doing and how he was doing it. I'm like, wow, that is brilliant, because he understood how to simplify things so that you focused on the feelings and the communication. And I thought, oh, I want to do that. And especially what he did, because I'm a New Yorker. So I actually was here for 9/11. That was like my first week in school. That was literally my welcome to New York. I had just moved away from home on my own for the first time, and then 9/11 happens. And I did see things with my own eyes that day. And that day it's always going to be a hard day for me. I recognize that. Like, I realize I'm one of millions of New Yorkers. It's just always going to be a day where we need to pause, or like, I recognize that. And I warn people, because they may not, a lot of people don't, again, it's like with my art, they won't remember, like I was here. They're trying to be like, oh yeah, the sun's out. I'm like, guys, it's 9/11. Can you give me a minute? Like, could you give me a minute? He
Right.
did something, yeah, right? I know. He did something very powerful around 9/11, where a year after 9/11, he came out of retirement, and he sat at his piano, and he spoke directly to the camera and said, I just want you know, sorry, I just want to let you know each year is special. And I'm proud of how you've grown up and who you've become. And sorry, it was just so powerful, because like I saw this like a couple years ago for the first time, of all things, even though like I don't know how I didn't see it until like the last couple of years, but I always reshare on 9/11 now. Um, but it goes into any kind of loss. Like, it goes into the loss of like losing a parent, losing a relationship, because a lot of times we need the support long after the fact. And I thought, that's my wish, is to be able to create a platform where I can also, in my own way, of course, but also have the opportunity to share messages like that, because obviously you don't want to copy people, but recognizing the brilliance of what he did, I was like, wow, I want to be able to do that. Like, I want to be able, like, I realize I can't change the world, but at least if I can be a pebble in the river that creates a ripple, and that brings somebody comfort,
Right.
and that brings hope and brings awareness, and that's kind of that's like my wish for my books. I get a little emotional sometimes, but like, it was just he just does it so beautifully. Like, I really am. And he has such a good sense of humor, because I'm a huge Johnny Carson fan. And when he went on the show and Johnny asked him, oh, have you seen the skits I've done? Because, Johnny had his, I forget what he called himself, something, another F male name, excuse me, another name that started with F. And, obviously he took it like in an adult way. And Mr. Rogers handled, like, he just had such a great sense of humor. He was such a great human. Like, he understood that, that's what comedians do, is they poke fun and they twist things. And like, he handled it so beautifully. He just like, he thought it was funny too. He's like, I get it. Like, I think it's funny, and like, so that's what I wish. I wish to get the space to be able to share that message, and also to be a public figure that can set that example for people. I think in this day and age, especially with what's going on in the world, like, I do get nervous with the people that are our examples of that are setting an example of what's appropriate and what isn't. And I think there's more of a need for someone to present, like, how to act human, how to be human, how to communicate, how to recognize feelings, how to give people space. So yeah, that's like my big wish.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's so cool too. Of like, that's I mean how I am too. I don't really care. Like, I don't want to be famous, but I obviously want this podcast to get the reach, get to the people who need to hear the episodes. And like, I want to start those conversations around these topics, like what you're talking about. I'm so excited you get to come on and I get to share that and help start that conversation. And like, that's my goal. It's not, oh my gosh, I just want to be rich and famous. Yeah, do I want to have some financial security with it? Yes. But like, it's about really getting that reach to the people. It's not just, oh, I just want to be famous, because if you want to be famous, there's a lot of other things you can just go and do. It's truly about your work and what you do, and you want that to be seen and recognized and have that, that ripple effect. So
Absolutely.
that was beautifully said. So good job.
Thank you.
And then my last question that I ask everybody is, how can we be praying for you?
Oh gosh, such a beautiful question. I love that. Oh God, I feel if you have someone in your life, adult or small, I actually will be sharing this with you. I always have printables for all the holidays and regular times. So I do talk a lot. Actually, it's funny. I meant to talk about it sooner. I totally like drew a blank on it. I highly believe in coloring, because what we were talking about with healing throughout this conversation, when you go through healing, a lot of times exercises are presented to you to let the inner child come out of you and let them play, let them run rampant. And coloring is a great way to do that. And it does have a lot of health benefits for children and for adults in addition to that. And it does, and ironically, it does the same thing for us as it does for the little ones. So if you know somebody, whether it's an adult or a child, that's looking for a quiet, creative moment in their day, sharing the printable with them would mean the world to me. I feel like when I see children drawing and coloring the color, as I design all my coloring, I do design everything. I draw everything. Everything's in my website. I draw on, like, it's me.
Wow.
There's something
That's awesome.
so, oh, thank you. There's something so inspiring watching kids color in the coloring sheets I create. There's something so great when people post their kids coloring Bella and like, the characters on social. And I think that's the best way to pray for me, because in light of what I said, I think these reaches, you never know who's going to see and who's going to identify. I've actually learned through networking, a lot of the things I have developed have come through me approaching one space and getting a lead for somewhere else, and then getting another lead and getting another lead. And eventually you end up with the right people. And so, and that's how I feel about the coloring sheets. It's just something small. It's a gift from me to you. And I think it's a way. So when I think of praying, I think it's like keeping us in our hearts, and honestly being at your kitchen, seeing a coloring jar on your kitchen table that I designed, which is just like, oh my God, celebrity sighting, which I've had a couple celebrity sightings for myself. So I'm really excited. I get excited when the kids come up like, I know you. I'm like, oh, you do. Yeah, so
That's awesome.
that would be
That's so cool.
Yeah. So that would be amazing. Such a good question. I love it.
Yeah. Thanks. And then if you want to send me anything you want me to link, I will put everything into show notes for the episode.
Sure.
So at printables, anything like that, let me know. So
amazing. Thank you. Excuse me.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I'm really grateful that I got to talk to you. This was such a great conversation. And I know that a lot of my listeners anyone can benefit from this. And I'm think that just getting that reach out, slowly. And I'm really excited for what you do. And I want to go buy all of your books now. So
thank you. Thank you. Music to my ears.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I definitely did. I want to go buy all her books, and I am literally 20 years old. Do not have kids. So, I think that they are awesome. I'm excited to print the coloring pages, do a little bit of that for myself. And then also everything of hers is linked in the show notes. So you have the printables, you have the newsletter, her socials, her books, etc. So again, all that's in the show notes. In the show notes, too, is all the ways that you can support the podcast. So joining the Patreon, which is $5 a month, getting extra content there. You have all of our social medias. You have also the companies that work with us that I love. So Dwell and Elevated Faith are two Christian clothing companies that I adore and have the best conversation starter, like apparel, that I have gotten the opportunity to talk to people about Jesus through. Another one is Cowboy Colostrum. Colostrum is a superfood. It helps you so much with just wellness and health and growth, like nail, hair growth, that kind of a thing, growing it out healthy, and so much more. So check them out. Then we have Opera Beauty, which is a Pilates and wellness brand that I adore. Such cute stuff from there. And then also lastly, 28 Co, which I love. It helps me so much with cycle syncing, from workouts to insights to recipes, grocery lists, period tracking, everything you need for cycle syncing. So go check all those out in the link in the show notes with the links. Also, you have codes down there, or just using that link will get you the code. So most of them are 15% off. Some are different, but go check all them out. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. I'll see you guys for next week's episode, and God bless.